When you hit the brake pedal on your Audi B9, are you afraid that you're not going to stop completely? Well, it might be time to replace the brakes. My name's Cole from FCP Euro, and today we're going to show you how to replace the pads and rotors in the front on your 2-liter equipped Audi B9. We're going to be replacing the front brakes on the B9 behind us with Zimmermann rotors and Techstar pads. This vehicle uses the brake code 1LF, and if you're not sure which brakes you need for your vehicle, give our tech support a call with your VIN number and they'll be happy to help you. Not only do we offer OEM and OE kits at FCP Euro, there's many other options on our website. If you head over to fcpeuro.com and input your vehicle, you can see everything that's available for your car. Now here at FCP Euro, we recommend replacing the front brakes on your B9 anywhere from 60,000 miles to 80,000 miles. These brakes have 60,000 miles in front of me and they still have some life left in them, but they may have been replaced ahead of time. Now, some ways that we can tell if we need to inspect or replace the brakes on our B9 can be the brake pad warning light on the dash, grinding, squeaking, pulsation in the pedal, or a visual inspection that the brakes are just not looking okay. Now we chose to go with this brake kit because it has an OE fit and you have all that same performance that you're used to from Zimmermann and Techstar. Now that we've gone over everything at the table, let's get into the tools that we're going to need for this DIY. We will need an arrangement of sockets including a 17mm wheel socket, 21mm T30 Torx bit, M10 triple square, and some adapters. You're going to need some ratchets in different lengths and sizes, torque wrenches that can range anywhere from 8 Newton meters up to 200 Newton meters, and optionally, some power tools definitely speed up the process. Additionally, we're gonna need some flathead screwdrivers or pry bars, a 90-degree pick, some safety glasses, a hammer, a wire brush, a hanger for the caliper, a wheel lug cover removal tool that's included inside your vehicle if it's in the trunk, a brake piston spreader, a suction fluid pump if you have to remove some brake fluid from the reservoir, brake clean, and optionally some glass cleaner and some Q-tips. Now that we know all the tools that we're going to need, let's get this DIY started. Now before working on the brake system, it's always a good idea to grab a flashlight, open this little panel on the hood, and check the brake fluid level. Now, the reason why we're checking that is because if it's too high and we retract the pistons, it can sometimes overflow this bottle and leave brake fluid everywhere. So if it's a little bit on the high side, it's a good idea to grab a little suction pump here. A turkey baster even works, and we can just suck a little bit of fluid out to lower that fluid level before we start working on the system. Be sure not to get brake fluid anywhere because it's highly corrosive and will destroy a bunch of stuff. But once we adjust the level, we're gonna put this cap back on and continue with this DIY. However, one thing to note, if you do suck some fluid out, be sure to check the fluid level again after you replace the brakes and top off if necessary. Now the first step is going to be to remove the front wheels and have the vehicle safely up in the air. Now we're going to be using an impact to do this, and if you don't have an impact gun to remove the lug bolts, you're going to want to break the lug bolts free on the ground before you lift the vehicle. Now there's going to be all these caps that you just saw me remove, and we're going to have to use this special tool that is located in the spare tire toolkit. And the way that this tool works is it slides over, grabs the little cover with the hooks, and we can pull it out. And now if you cannot find this tool in your trunk, you can always use a small right angle pick. Now these lug bolts are going to be a 17mm, and we're using a protective wheel socket here on our impact to remove them. Now, one tool that we like to use to remove wheels and help you from dropping it on your foot is this little wheel hanger tool here. And this is going to be a M14 by 1.5 thread, and it just threads in here nicely. So when we go to remove that last bolt, it doesn't fall on our foot. It also makes putting the wheel on a lot easier. With the wheel removed, the first thing that we're going to want to do is grab a flathead screwdriver and just separate this outer pad from the rotor a little bit. And that's going to give us a little bit more room, so when we remove this caliper, it's easier to do that. Now, to give yourself a little bit more access down here, we're going to rotate this hub outwards, where the brake caliper is going to be positioned towards the outside of the vehicle. Now, to make everything move a little bit more freely, we're going to want to take the 2 bolts out of this bracket and have this be able to move. So we're going to take all of these little rubber grommets and pop them out of this holder, and then come back with an M10 triple square and remove these 2 bolts. In this case, I have a really slim wrench, but as long as you tilt the hub assembly outwards, it should give you enough room. Since we're already in this area, we can take a 90-degree pick, get underneath this little locking tab for the brake pad wear sensor on the driver's side, so then we can rotate this connector assembly up and out of the holder completely. And then since we have that out of the holder, we can just come here and disconnect it. Now, this pad clip right here slides through both brake pads and kind of hold them into place, and it also creates tension on the pad, so it has an anti-rattle property. There's 2 ways that you can try to remove this. One, you can take the caliper off, spread the pistons to give yourself a little bit more room, and then slide it back on, loosely put the bolts back in, and then try to hammer it out. Or you can just take a 90-degree pick, get underneath of the locking mechanism on it, and then take a pry bar, a chisel, something you can tap on to be able to tap this out of the caliper. Now, a little visual on how this clip works. It slides in just like this, and you can see there's these 2 little locking tabs. So when we're sliding it out, we may have to press on this tab upwards a little bit to just give us a little bit more clearance. And this is going to be replacing the kit, so we can throw these away. Now, with a 21mm socket and an appropriate ratchet, we're going to come and remove these caliper bolts. It's good to crack one free loose and then come back to the other one and crack that loose, so if we have an issue removing them, the caliper is not going to fly all over the place. Now these are both loose, we can start rotating them out. Sometimes you can wiggle the caliper a little bit to help get that bolt out. It's good to have one of these caliper hangers handy, as we're going to remove the caliper completely from the vehicle now and start to hang it. As you can see, we have a little bit of a challenge pulling this out all the way, and that's why we remove the bolts from that bracket to give us a little bit more leeway. There we go. With the caliper off the car, we can remove the brake pad wear sensor, so then we can spread the pads, remove the pads, and start installing new pads. So we're just gonna pop that bleeder cap off so we can pull this whole brake pad wear sensor out. Now, this is a brake pad spreader tool, and the purpose of this tool is to just push those brake pads apart so our pistons get retracted into the caliper. You can find this tool at fcpeuro.com. All right, my spreader is not going any further, so we can pull this out and remove our old brake pads. These have clips on the back of them, so they are gonna pop out just like that. And once we do one, we're just gonna repeat that process on the other pad. With the pads removed inside this caliper, we're gonna have to remove these little sliding contact pieces that go actually onto the caliper itself. And the reason why we're replacing these is because this is a wear item on these calipers. With everything that we're gonna replace removed from the caliper, we can start cleaning it using some brake cleaner and a good old wire brush. Now, we don't want to use compressed air when cleaning the caliper because that puts a lot of contaminant particles airborne, and we do not want to breathe that in. Now that we have this caliper nice and squeaky clean, we're gonna assemble everything with all the new parts in the kit and get it ready to put onto the vehicle after we replace the rotor. So we're gonna take the new sliding pads here that comes in the kit, and we're gonna install them onto the caliper. Now you'll see there's a little groove here that little locking mechanism sits in, and we're just gonna make sure that sits nice and flush. Then you're gonna repeat that process on all of the other pads. Now, since the pads are going to be wearing on these actual pads, it's a good idea to take some of the brake grease that's included in the kit and just put a light coating on those pads there. I'm going to be using a cotton applicator tip here just because that makes it a little bit easier for you to see on the camera. Just a light coat will do here, and repeat this process on all of the pads. Another spot that is good to lubricate on the caliper is actually going to be the face of the piston. So we're going to take a little bit more grease here on our applicator and just do a light coating on the face of that piston. Repeat this process on all of the pistons. We have our new TechStar brake pads here, and there is some important information to add on these pads. As you can see here, there is going to be an arrow in which direction they want the rotor to rotate, so that's important. Another thing that is important is to make sure that this little cutout here is on the back side of the caliper, because this is where we're going to put the new brake pad wear sensor in. So we'll start with the back pad first, take it here like this, slide it down, and then we are going to have to clip it into the pistons. You may have to finesse it a little bit, but once we get close, it should pop right in. There we go. Sometimes you gotta lift it up and down to get enough movement in that. Now, taking the other pad here, we'll just repeat that process. There we go. All right, now that our new pads are all installed in this little caliper, let's go and replace the rotor. If you live on the East Coast, just like us here in Connecticut, rust is a real thing. And what you see me doing here is removing the pin and putting one of the lug bolts back into the rotor. Now, the reason why we are threading this bolt into the hub is because if you have to use a hammer to remove the rotor, when it comes free, it won't fall on your foot. Using a T30 bit, we are going to remove this rotor set screw here and start to remove the rotor. We try to give it a couple taps. Doesn't seem like it wants to come off. That's why we have a hammer. You can see that it started to wiggle a little bit, and just like that. As you can see, that helped us not drop the rotor on our feet. So once we have it free, we can unthread this bolt and remove the rotor. Now we can see that the hub has a little bit of surface rust on it, and we want to remove all of that before we install our new rotor. So we're gonna grab some safety glasses here and this really nice hub resurfacing tool that makes this job a lot easier. If you don't have something like this, where this can be found at fcpro.com, you can use a wire brush, a whizzy wheel, or something that can remove all the excess rust on the surface. So we're just gonna take this tool here. With our hub nice and smooth here, we can reinstall this holder if you have one, just to help us, again, not drop that rotor on our foot. Taking our new rotor, we're gonna wanna align this little hole here for the set screw to the position on the hub. So a good tech tip is to look at the hole next to it, which is gonna be this one on the left. So I'm going to place this rotor over top, just like this. And we can see the threads for that set screw. With the new set screw included in the kit and our T30 socket, we're gonna thread this on and then tighten it down to 8 Newton meters. It's always a good point to check to make sure that when we're tightening this, the rotor is sitting flush and as flat as we can. And if it's not sitting flush, maybe just grab your hammer and tap it a couple times to ensure it is. If you need something to counterhold this rotor, you can always take a flathead screwdriver, place it between the vanes, so then we can hold this while we tighten this with our torque wrench. Now with the new rotor on, we're gonna take our new sensor here and clip it into this little groove. And it's going to route on the bottom side of the rear of the caliper, right up here, and then we can put the bleeder screw cap back on. Unhooking our caliper here from our holder, we can now reinstall it onto the caliper. We're gonna have to be careful with all of the wires and the harnesses back here and route this right behind the hub assembly. Just slip it over just like that. Make sure our pads slide nicely over this new rotor. There we go. Take the bolts that we used to hold this in previously, and we'll thread them in by hand and come back and tighten them all the way down. We're just gonna snug these up by hand using a ratchet and a 21mm socket, and then come back with our torque wrench and tighten these bolts to 200 Newton meters. With the caliper all tightened down, we can take the triple square hardware here and thread it back into these holes, and then come back with our torque wrench and tighten these down to 20 Newton meters. We can take all these wire harnesses that we removed earlier and push them back into place. Now, since it's rubber, sometimes it can be a little challenging to push them back in, so a little bit of glass cleaner makes the job easier. With all the wiring back in place, we can take our brake pad wear sensor here, reconnect it on the electrical connector, and then reinstall it back into this bracket. You're gonna wanna twist it 90 degrees, and then if you look right here, it's gonna lock into place. We can now straighten back out the assembly here and reinstall our clip on the pads. This clip is directional, and these locking tabs need to face downwards. So with that positioned this way, we're gonna slide it in between the brake pads here, and you'll hear that audible click, and then give it a couple little shakes and make sure that clip is centered and it's not gonna slide out. Now that we have everything assembled here, we can repeat that process on the other side. We're now gonna take our wheel here, reinstall it to the vehicle, take the 5/17mm wheel bolts and snug them up. Now that we have the wheel snugged up here, the final steps that we're gonna have to do is lower the vehicle down to the ground, tighten all the lug bolts to 140 Newton meters, pump the brake pedal a couple times to ensure it's firm, and follow in the bedding procedures for the brake pads that you choose. And that's it. You successfully just replaced the front brakes on your 2-liter equipped Audi B9. If you like this video, please be sure to hit that like button. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, drop them in the comments section below. And if you want to see more 2-liter Audi B9 videos and many other, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we have a lot more coming. My name's Cole from FCP Hero. Thanks for watching and keep on wrenching.